Ready to enjoy learning English? Little English, Episode 2.
One, two, three.
One, two, three, four, five. Once I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I let it go again. Why did you let it go? 'Cause it bit my finger so. Which finger did it bite? This little finger on the right. One, two, three, four, five. Once I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I let it go again. Why did you let it go? 'Cause it bit my finger so. Which finger did it bite? This little finger on the right.
Learn the fingers. Take a look at your hands. You see? You have 1 and 2 hands, which we use, for example, to play, to eat, to comb your hair, to paint, to draw, or simply to pick up things. Do you know how many fingers do you have in each hand? Yes, right? You have 5 fingers. Let's see the name of each one. For example, we have the big one is the thumb. We use the thumb to say, okay. Then we have the index. The index, we use it to point out something or indicate, like, oh, I want this ice cream. Okay? Then we have the middle one. The middle is the big one in the middle of your hand and is the largest one. You see? Then we have the ring. This one we use to normally to wear a ring. Then we have the small one, which is the pinky. The pinky is the smallest one of your hands. And let's repeat them. Thumb, index, middle, ring, and the pinky. And in the middle of your hand, you have the palm. And with all the hands, we say goodbye.
Puss in Boots. Once upon a time, there was an old miller. Now, the old miller is a man who works in a windmill making flour so that everybody in the village can have bread to eat, and cakes and pasta and pizza and all of those lovely things. But this miller was very, very old, and one day he knew that the end was coming. And so he got his 3 sons, and they stood by his bed, and he was very tired and very weak, and he said, "To my first son, George, I leave you my windmill, so that all of the people can have flour, so that they can have bread and cakes and pizza to eat. To my second son, James, I leave my donkey, so that you can help George with the windmill. And to my youngest son, John, I leave you my cat." "A cat?" said John. "Just a cat? George gets the windmill, and James gets a donkey. Oh, and I get a cat." "Oh," said the miller. "You don't understand, John, you see. The cat, it's very special. It's a magic cat." Well, John wasn't very happy, but his father went away, and John took his cat and went back into the windmill and sat on the sofa and watched television for a week. "What am I going to do with a cat?" He thought. "It's just a cat. It drinks milk and it goes meow. Oh well." And nothing happened until one day, suddenly, the cat, out of nowhere, said, "Hello, my friend." "What? The cat speaking to me?" said John. "Oh, yeah. I'm a magic cat. Yeah, I'm a magic cat. I can speak. I can do lots of things." "Well, like what?" said John. Well, I can make you a millionaire. Would you like that, What? Yes, I would, but how are you going to do that?" He said, "Well, before I do anything, I need 2 things." He said, what do you need from me?" He said, "Well, I need some boots, because my feet are very, very cold, and I need a hat." And John did just that. He got the cat some boots, and he got him a hat. And with that, the cat became Puss in Boots. So, John was very, very curious about how the cat was going to make him rich. So he asked him what his plan was. And the cat said, "Well, you see, I happen to know, right, that there's a castle at the other side of the village, and that's where the king lives." And John said, "Yes, I know that's where the king lives. We take him bread every morning, but what do you think I can do?" He said, "Well, I happen to know that the king has a daughter who's a very beautiful princess. How'd you like that, And John said, well, I know she's beautiful. I've seen her in the mornings when I take her the bread, but do you think she would like me? I'm just a poor miller's son." He said, "Well, yeah, if you're just a poor miller's son, I don't think he'll like you very much. I don't think she'll like you very much. But I'm not going to tell him that you're a miller's son, am I?" And John thought, well, okay, this is a very strange cat, and he does talk in a very strange way, but I think I trust him, because he looks very, very elegant with the hat and the boots. So he told the cat to go and do what he had to do, and off Puss in Boots went into the forest. So Puss in Boots was running through the forest, and what should he see but some rabbits? So he grabbed a couple of the rabbits and he put them in his bag, and off he ran to the castle as fast as he could. And when he got to the castle, he knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. And who should open the door but the guard of the castle? "Who is it there?" he said. "Why, I'm the servant of the Marquis of Carabas." "Who's the Marquis of Carabas?" asked the god. "Oh, well, he's a very, very important man. He lives very, very far away, but he's come to live here now, and he's brought this present for the king. It's a couple of rabbits." "Oh, well, that's very nice of him," said the god. I'll take these to the king, and we'll see what he says, shall we?" So off went the guard with the rabbits to see the king, and before long, who should appear at the door but the king? And the king said, "Oh, hello, servant of the Marquis of Carabas. Yes, I know him very well. He's a very nice man, and he's brought me these rabbits, has he?" "Oh, yeah, he gives everyone rabbits. He's a very nice man, the Marquis. I love working for him. He's a great boss." And the king said, well, I would love to visit him. I would love to visit him and thank him for these lovely rabbits. Where does he live?" And of course, with that, Puss in Boots got very nervous because, as you remember, John, who isn't really the Marquis of Carabas at all, he lives in a windmill, and that's no place for a king to go. So Puss thought about it for a couple of seconds. He said, "Oh, yeah, he lives in a castle. He lives in a castle far, far away in the other side of the forest. Yeah, it's a big, big castle, almost as big as this one. It's really nice, actually." And the king said, "Well, I'll definitely go to visit him, but thank you very much. Goodbye." And then with that, Puss in Boots ran as fast as he could back to the windmill, and it took him a day and a half, and he ran and ran and ran. He got in, he went, John, quick, come with me." He said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, the king's coming to visit." And with that, they ran off into the forest until they got to the river. And when they got to the river, Puss in Boots said, "Right, quick, take off your clothes and jump in the river." And John said, "But it's December, it was freezing." He said, "It'd only been 5 minutes, just jump in the river." And then John took off his clothes and jumped in the river, and just at that point, the carriage came along, the big carriage with the wheels, with the horses at the front, and inside the carriage were the king and the princess. And as soon as they got close, Puss in Boots jumped out into the middle of the road and shouted, "Help! Help!" And the horses stopped. And the king jumped out. He said, "What's the matter?" He said, "It's my master, the Marquis of Carabas. He's fallen in the river and someone's stolen his clothes. Please help him." And as quick as he could, the king ordered his guards to go to the river and save the Marquis of Carabas. And they did. They ran off and they took out the Marquis of Carabas. And the king told the guards, "Now, you must dress the Marquis of Carabas in the finest clothes, because he's a very important man, and he must dress in the finest clothes known to person." And he did. They dressed him in the finest clothes, and then they put him in the carriage to go back to his castle. And of course, when John stepped inside the carriage, and he saw the princess, and the princess saw him in the finest clothes that he had, it was love at first sight. So, the king said, Now that we've saved you, I was actually coming to visit you. Could you please take me to your castle?" And John got very worried because he thought, "Well, I don't have a castle." So he said, I need to speak to my servant. Could I have 1 second, please?" And the king said, "Certainly, of course. What a polite young man." And John jumped outside and said, Puss, what are we going to do? Because I don't have a castle." And Puss in Boots said, "Okay, just try and make them go slower, but tell them to go down that road on the right. I'll run ahead and see what I can do." And he said, "Okay." And then off Puss ran as quick as he could until he found a big castle at the end of the road. Now, Puss, who was a very, very clever cat, knew that inside the castle lived a big ogre. Do you know what an ogre is? It's a big, ugly man like that. Arr! And he's very scary, and he's not very nice to children. So we don't like ogres, do we? No. And he went and he knocked on the door because he's a very brave cat, Puss in Boots. And he knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. And the ogre was sleeping. And he doesn't like it when people wake him up when he's sleeping. He's like, "Oh, leave me alone." And Puss in Boots kept knocking. Knock, 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 knock. Until the ogre opened the door. He said, "Who is it?" And he said, "Well, hello. I'm the servant of the Marquis of Carabas." And he said, "What do you want?" He said, well, I was just talking to the king, and they said that you are the most stupid creature in the whole land. And of course the ogre got very angry. He said, I am not stupid. Who said I'm stupid? I'm incredible. I can do magic. And the cat said, I don't believe you can do magic. All right, show me some magic. He said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, let's see if you can turn into a lion. So he did. The ogre went, boom! And he became a lion. Big lion with big teeth. And the cat said, well, yeah, that's very good. Well done. That's brilliant, yeah. But, you see, the thing is, you're really big. And a lion is also really big. So that doesn't really impress me. Why don't you become something very small, like a mouse? Now that's good. Yeah, if you can become a little squeaky mouse, that would be really good, that. So he did. Boom! And he became a little mouse. And as you know, and I know, cats like nothing more than to eat mice. And with that, Puss in Boots jumped on the ogre, who was a mouse, and ate him. And there was no more ogre. Now, what am I going to do with this big empty castle? Thought Puss in Boots. I'll give it to John. And just at that moment, the carriage arrived with John and the king and the princess. And the king was very, very impressed with the castle. And he said, Marquis of Carabas, I like your castle, I like your Puss in Boots, and I like you. And I think that you are the perfect person to marry my daughter. And he did. And the king, and John, and the princess, and Puss in Boots lived happily ever after.
Baby elephant.
Believe you're in a jungle movie. Watch the baby elephants go by. The beat is groovy. It's a brand new dance you ought to try. Come to the jungle and see the animal attraction. Baby elephants in action. The big baboon on the bongo as the baby elephants advance down in the Congo. All the swinging monkeys do this dance. Come to the jungle and see the animal attraction. Baby elephants in action. The beat is groovy. It's a brand new dance you ought to try. Come to the jungle and see the animal attraction. If you plan on joining a safari, don't prepare for going on a cruise. That thing to carry is an extra pair of dancing shoes. Come to the jungle and see the baby elephants and walk. Make believe you're in a jungle movie. Watch the baby elephants go by. The beat, it's groovy. It's a brand new dance you ought to try. Come to the jungle and see the animal attraction. Baby elephants in action. See the big baboon on the bongo as the baby elephants advance down in the Congo. All the swinging monkeys do this dance. The beat is groovy. It's a brand new dance you ought to try. Come to the jungle and see the animal attraction. If you plan on joining the safari, don't be dressed for going on a cruise. The thing to carry is an extra pair of dancing shoes. Come to the jungle and see the baby elephants and walk.
Learn the seasons. The year has 4 seasons, and during them the weather changes. When it's cold, we have to wear lots of garment layers, or thicker ones, and we have to wear a coat. And when it gets warmer, we use less garment layers, or thinner ones, like for example shorts or t-shirts, and we don't need a coat anymore. And because the weather changes, the landscape changes as well. Let's see the seasons and see how it changes ourselves. We have the winter. The winter is a cold weather, and the trees, they're without leaves. The river is frozen, and we have to wear lots of clothes, lots and a coat. And sometimes it can snow. That means that we can play and we can build a snowman. Then we have the spring. The spring, there's a lot of flowers and the weather gets warm. That's nice. The trees become green and the sun starts to shine. And the flowers, they bloom, so they smell so good. And sometimes, but not always, sometimes it starts to rain. Then we have the summer. The summer, I love summer, don't you? The water in the river gets warm, so we can swim. And the sun is very shiny. And the most important thing is that there is no school, so holiday starts. Then we have the autumn. The autumn, the atmosphere is everything colored by orange and yellow. It's very beautiful and romantic. That's what I think. The sun is not that bright, but it's nice as well. It's a cold weather, and the trees and plants, they lose their leaves. And yes, school starts, but we can find and meet our friends again. Did you like the seasons? I hope so. See you later.
The Grasshopper and the Ant. Once upon a time, there was a grasshopper. Now, I don't know if you know what a grasshopper is. A grasshopper is an insect, and he's very long and very thin and green, and he jumps about. But this grasshopper didn't jump about. This grasshopper liked to do 2 things. He liked to sleep, and he liked to sing. He thought he had a lovely voice. And all day long, he would walk through the forest singing. And none of the other animals listened to him. But he didn't care. I've got a lovely voice, he said. So, one day, summer came. And the grasshopper saw all of the animals running about in the forest and jumping and playing. And he thought, aha, this is a perfect time for me to show them my lovely voice. And he went into the middle of the forest, and there was a little hill, and he stood on the hill so everybody could see him. And he went, hey, 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 grasshopper, oh, I'm a grasshopper. And nobody listened to him, but he kept going. And when they didn't listen, he thought, maybe they don't like my style. I'll change to opera. Grasshopper. They still didn't listen. He was a very silly grasshopper. But he kept going, and he kept singing, and he kept... until, in among all the animals, he saw a tiny, tiny ant. And the ant was carrying a grain of rice. Now, for you and for me, a grain of rice is a tiny, teeny, tiny little thing. But an ant, who's also very tiny and very teeny, well, for him, it's as big as a mountain. And he was carrying the rice, and it was very heavy. But luckily, an ant is very strong, so he didn't have too much of a problem. And he was walking along with the rice, and the grasshopper said, Hey, Mr. Ant! Why are you carrying that rice? And the ant said, well, I need it for the winter, because in the winter we won't have any. And he said, but now it's summer and all the birds are singing and I'm singing. You should listen to me. Hey, listen to this. Grasshopper, oh, grasshopper. And the ant said, no. You're very silly, Mr. Grasshopper. I'm going to take the rice home now. Thank you. And he did. He took the rice. And once he got the rice to his house, he went back into the forest and he found nuts, and he found peanuts and walnuts and corn and wheat and all of the nice things that you and I like to eat. The ants like to eat them as well. And he carried them all very slowly, but without stopping, to his house. And meanwhile, the grasshopper didn't do anything like that. He just stood on his hill and he sang and he danced and nobody listened to him. But he still thought, I have a lovely voice. They just don't understand me. And then, before long, the leaves started to fall from the trees because summer had gone and now it was autumn. So the grasshopper stayed on his hill, singing and dancing, and the ant continued to carry all of the food back to his house. And the grasshopper saw the ant. And he said, hey, Mr. Ant, why are you carrying that rice? You carried it all summer long. And the ant said, because winter is very cold and very long. And I need all of this food to survive until spring, which comes after winter. So he continued to carry it, and the grasshopper continued to sing. And before long, all of the leaves had fallen from the trees, and the trees had no leaves, and then winter came. And you know what happens in winter, don't you? It gets very cold, and snow falls, and it's very, very cold, and everyone shakes and shivers. And that's what happened to the grasshopper. All of the other animals, who were very intelligent, went into their little houses and closed the doors so they were nice and warm. And the grasshopper, who hadn't done any work in the summer, he didn't have a house to go to. And he started to get very sad and very cold and very hungry. And he started to sing a very sad song with a harmonica. He went, I don't have any food. I'm so hungry. And he walked all the way to the ant's house and he knocked on the door. And the ant opened the door and he said, yes. And he said, could you help me out, Mr. Ant? I have no food. He said, well, I told you in the summer and in the autumn, but you didn't listen to me. You just sang and slept, and I was working, and now I have all of this lovely food, and you don't have any. And that's your problem. Goodbye. And he closed the door. And the grasshopper got very scared, and he walked over to a tree, and the tree had no leaves. It was a very sad tree. And he sat down on the tree and he cried. I have nothing to eat. And it's very cold. Now, the ant, who was in his house, looked through the curtains, out the window, and he saw the grasshopper. And the ant was very angry with the grasshopper, but luckily, the ant was also a very good ant. So he thought for a bit, and he went to the door, and he opened the door, and he said, "Hey, grasshopper, come here." So the grasshopper very slowly, because he was very hungry, walked towards the ant's door. And the ant said to him, "I have an idea." "What's that, Mr. Ant?" said the grasshopper. The ant said, "I have a problem, you see, because I have a radio, and normally in the winter, I like to listen to my music while I eat my food, but my radio is broken. It doesn't work. So, if you come in and you sing to me, I will give you food. And next summer, you have to come with me and help me carry things, because you are bigger than me, and you can carry even more. And then next winter, we'll have lots and lots of food for both of us." And the grasshopper was very happy, and he went in and he sang all of his greatest hits. The one that goes, "Oh, grasshopper," and the other one goes, "Grasshopper," and they became best friends, and they had lots of food. And then every summer, the grasshopper could always be seen helping the ant gather his food. Because remember, you have to do your work. If you want to have a good time later on, first of all, you have to do the right thing. And that's what the ant and the grasshopper did, and they lived happily ever after. Oh.